Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. It is day 3 of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. We got 4 games on tap for today. We'll recap some of the games that came on yesterday. We'll kind of briefly talk about these 4 games coming on today. And like I said, it's day 3 of these Stanley Cup Playoffs. And the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast has you covered all postseason long. So make sure to follow the podcast if you are not already. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the Stanley Cup playoff news for today. I'm not going to be stalling for too long. We'll start things off with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Battle of Pennsylvania. Dan Vladar makes 27 saves in the Flyers' 3-0 shutout win over the Pittsburgh Penguins on Monday. 25 of those saves he made in the final 2 periods. In the final 2 periods of the second and third period, he did make 25 of those saves. This was also his first career shutout in the Stanley Cup playoffs in just his second start. Unbelievable. He did record a shutout in 51 starts during the regular season. He's only played 52 of those games. And Dan Vladar is the second Flyers goalie to have a playoff shutout against the Penguins since Martin Byron, I don't know how you pronounce that last name. But he is the second Flyers goalie to have a playoff shutout against the Penguins since Martin Byron had a 28-save shutout in Game 5 of the 2009 first-round series when these two teams went at it. And, of course, the Penguins won that series, and they went all the way to win the Stanley Cup that year in 2009. But it will be the Flyers taking this one in Game 2 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they lead this best-of-7 series 2-0. Game 3 will be in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This game will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max for you guys to watch. I don't know how Penguins fans are feeling out there. I know I have some buddies, acquaintances that I talk to that are Penguins fans. And not sure how they feel about after seeing their team lose their first 2 games at home against their arch division rivals in the Philadelphia Flyers. I know a lot of people before the series had started predicted the Penguins would win over the Flyers. I was one of those few people that predicted the Flyers would win over the Penguins because you can't underestimate the Flyers. The Flyers are a wagon. I mean, they've been doing very well since the Olympic break. And Martone, he's been contributing every single time since joining the Flyers out of Michigan State. So you can't underestimate the Flyers. You can't underestimate them. You can't doubt them. That's why I picked the Flyers to win this series over the Pittsburgh Penguins. I would love to see this go to 7 games. I think it will go to 7 games. So you can't underestimate the Penguins either because, like I said, this could go to 7 games. I don't see this being a clean sweep for the Flyers. I did predict they'll win, though. But like I said, I don't see this being a sweep or nothing. I would love to see it go to 7 games if it will. But yeah, Game 3 is in Philadelphia on Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We'll see what happens there. But this was another close game between these two teams. Of course, the Flyers won Game 1 by a final score of 3-2, and then winning Game 2 3-0. So we haven't seen a lot of high-scoring games in this one. We did see another physical type of game. There were a lot of scrums in this one. Not necessarily fights, but more like scrums and players going at it. Of course, we've seen Sidney Crosby go against some of the Flyers players in these first 2 games. I know some Flyers fans were calling him a crybaby and whatnot, but hey, the Caps got to do what the Caps got to do. You got to stick up for your players, and that's what Sidney Crosby did in these first 2 games. Like, we seen him in the scrums before. We definitely seen him in this rivalry before. So, yeah. I know some Flyers fans, maybe some Flyers fans, even though that Sidney Crosby from the Penguins, they might actually like Sidney Crosby. Who knows? If I was a Flyers fan, I probably would still like Sidney Crosby, despite him being on the Penguins. He's one of the best players to ever play the game. But his team is down 2-0 to the Philadelphia Flyers. And speaking of the Flyers, like I said, we got to talk about Martone. He is having a heck of a season. Or I shouldn't even say season because he hasn't even played a full 82-game season. But since arriving on the Flyers from Michigan State, Porter Martone has put the Flyers on notice. He has put the league on notice. He has put the Penguins on notice, scoring his first 2 career Stanley Cup playoff goals in each game. He had a goal in game 1, had a goal in game 2. He's been playing tremendously well for the Flyers since joining them out of Michigan State. He is the first teenager in NHL history to score the game-winning goal. Excuse me. To score the game-winning goal in each of his first 2 career Stanley Cup playoff games. And since joining the Flyers, he's had 12 points since joining them. 6 goals, 6 assists for 12 points for Porter Martone, and that is counting regular season and playoffs. And he is the 6th youngest player in NHL history to score in his first 2 postseason games, behind Don Gallagher, who 17 years old when he did it. Jordan Stahl, who was 18 years old when he did it. Current captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. Could see a second-round matchup between Philly and Carolina. That's why I predicted on my playoff bracket, but we'll see. And then Hurricanes head coach Rod Brindamore, he was 18 years old when he did it. Tyler Seguin, 19 years old when he did it. And Wendell Clark, who was 19 years old when he did it. Garnet, Hathaway, and Luke Glendening also scored the other goals for Flyers. Garnet Hathaway's goal was a shorthanded goal, and Glenning's goal was an empty netter. For Garnet Hathaway, his shorthanded goal was the first for the Flyers in the playoffs since April 20th of 2018, when Valerie, I know the player's name and face, I'm trying to pronounce the name, when Valley Flipula, I hope I pronounced that right, scored in Pittsburgh. He also scored in Pittsburgh in Game 5 of the first round series when the Penguins took on the Flyers. And fun fact, that was actually the last time the Penguins did win a playoff series against their division longtime arch rivals in the Philadelphia Flyers. For the Pens, Stuart Skinner made 20 saves on 22 shots faced the net. So this might be another game where Stuart Skinner playoff, because we've seen this before in the Edmonton Oilers, where Stuart Skinner has some of his worst performance in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in the opening round series like we saw last year when he was on Edmonton. I think he was the starting goalie for games 1 and 2, I believe, of that first round series when the Oilers took on the Kings. And Stuart Skinner had bad performances in both of those games. So it's a similar scenario here. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Pittsburgh, but we can talk about what went right and wrong for the Penguins in Game 2 in their first round series against Flyers. Because I thought personally they had a better performance in Game 2 than in Game 1, despite being shut out and coming out with the L. Let's talk about what went right for the Penguins, though. They had strong 5-on-5 play, especially early on in the game. The Penguins controlled 66% of those shot attempts overall and dominated in the first and third periods in puck possession. They weren't chasing the play like in Game 1, and they had more time in the O-zone. So they were good offensively in Game 2 than in Game 1. And then another positive for the Penguins in Game 2 was the scoring chance qualities and the high danger chances. So they finished around 49% in terms of quality chances, and they actually led in high danger scoring chances with 11-6. So huge improvement from Game 1, because in Game 1 they struggled to generate anything on there. They weren't, the top tier team in Game 1. So Game 2 was a huge better performance despite the loss. They tried to get back to this game in the third period. They had 73% of scoring chances in that third period. They had 28 shot attempts in total in the final frame, and none of those shots could hit the back of the net. But let's talk about what went wrong in this game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins went 0 for 5 on the power play. Not to mention that they gave up that shorthanded goal in the middle frame from Garnet Hathaway. And overall, they're 0 for 7 on the power play in this series. And then, for me, the bigger factor in this one, the execution was not there. I mean, we talked about it. We talked about how the Penguins had a better performance in Game 2 than in Game 1. But for some of the chances, and I was watching this game, some of the chances that I saw were not there. I mean, they couldn't finish. They couldn't finish on those chances. For some of those chances that they got, I didn't keep an eye out on all chances, but at least for some of the ones that I saw, they couldn't finish. Dan Vladar was there for all of them. Like, they couldn't finish either that or they couldn't time it right. So I felt like the execution in this game wasn't there. So that's the bigger takeaway for what went wrong for the Penguins, in my opinion. And then another one, this is probably the one that's second to that, the costly mistakes and the turnovers. We did see some turnovers in the Penguins game against the Flyers. And this one, we saw that they turned the puck over in the defensive zone, giving up that shorthanded goal. And then we saw on the first goal where Porter Martone had the first goal of the game, led it 1-0. We did see a turnover there. Like, you can't afford to be giving up these goals. And a lot of people picked the Penguins to win over the Flyers. A lot of people picked the Penguins to win over the Flyers, but you can't underestimate Philly. But I do have some solutions on how the Penguins could get back in the series and try to win games 3 and 4 on the road in Philadelphia. For one thing, the power play needs some work. I mean, take a look at the Penguins power play unit on daily faceoff. It's not the best. I would be the first to say it's not a great power play unit, but it has to improve. It has to improve. We cannot see some of the mistakes that we saw on the power play, like we saw in games 1 and 2. That's got to step it up on the road in Philly. And I'm pretty sure that barn will be loud because this is the first time that the Flyers made the playoffs since, I believe, 2020. I think they beat, I don't know who they beat in the qualifying round, but I think after the opponent they beat in the qualifying round, they did make the playoffs. And also this will be the first time since 2018 that the Flyers will have a home crowd. So expect that barn to be loud. And that leads me to another tip. Silence the home crowd. You saw the Flyers did that to the Penguins in their home barn at PBG Paints Arena. Same thing's got to be done in Philly. Like, you want to come and quiet our crowd, you want to come and embarrass us in front of our fans, we'll do the same thing to you. So that's the feeling that the Penguins have to feel as they head to Philly for games 3 and 4. Another thing, use some of the things that they did in Game 2. Like I said, I like their Game 2 performance. I just felt like they need to finish on those chances more. Keep the forecheck going. Keep the possession going. Keep the high danger scoring chance going. Like, outshoot the Flyers in this one. Outshoot them, outscore them, have better puck possession. And another thing, create chaos in front of Dan Vladar. I mean, Dan Vladar, he's reading these chances clean. We need to see screens. We need to see rebounds. We need to see secondary scoring chances. We didn't see a lot of that in these first 2 games. We need to see it on the road in Philly. And last but not least, Sid the Kid breakthrough. Sidney Crosby, arguably the best Penguins player of all time. I don't know, somebody will say Mario Lemieux, but for me, I would say Sidney Crosby. And it's not just because I grew up watching him. I would say, like, we have seen Sidney Crosby scoreless in these first 2 games. Not a point in any of the first 2 games. We need to see Sidney Crosby step up for the Penguins in a big way if they want a chance to get back in the series. If the Penguins want to get back in the series, they need the captain, Sidney Crosby, to be on the score sheet. I mean, we did see him getting a few scrums or so in games 1 and 2. We need to see him on the score sheet in games 3 and 4 and throughout the rest of the series if the Penguins want a chance to get back into this series. But game 3, like I said, will be in Philadelphia on Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. We'll see if the Penguins can win games 3 and 4 in a row, or will this be a 3-0 series lead for the Flyers looking to close it out in a sweep for game 4, which I believe will be on Friday. But yeah, this should be an interesting game 3, a pivotal game 3 for both these series. The Penguins, a chance for them to get back in the series. Flyers, a chance to take a commanding 3-0 series lead. We'll see what happens. Moving on to the other game, Hurricanes, Senators. Jordan Martone, he scored the overtime game-winning goal in the Hurricanes 3-2 double overtime win over the Senators on Monday. Scored with 6 minutes and 7 seconds left to go in overtime. This was in, again, double overtime. After he had the penalty shot stopped in the first overtime for Carolina, so he actually did have a chance to win it in the first overtime, but his penalty shot ended up getting stopped by Linus Ullmark. Carolina leads this best-of-7 series, 2-0. And fun fact, the Hurricanes are the first team in the NHL history to take a 2-0 series lead in its first best-of-7 series in 6 straight postseasons. And I kind of felt like this was going to happen because we've seen the Hurricanes, like, from my perspective, I don't know if this is for anybody else, but from my perspective, I feel like every time, no matter who the opponent is for Carolina, they always have the first 2 games at home. I never seen neither of the first 2 games on the road. It's always been at home, and they seem to go up 2-0 every time. That's from my perspective. I don't know how anybody else feels about that. But anyways, Game 3 will be in Ottawa on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This will air on TBS and HBO Max for you guys to watch. This game was absolute chaos in the first overtime. A lot of chances for both teams. I feel like Carolina had more of those chances, though, but Senators had a couple chances too, but lots of chances overall in that first overtime. One being from Mark Jankowski, who have appeared to have scored the overtime game-winning goal for the Canes doing a delayed penalty with 2 minutes and 42 seconds remaining in overtime, but it was up for review, and the play was offside prior to the goal, so good challenge for the Ottawa Senators, challenging that goal to see if it was offside or not. And then before that, like I talked about, Jordan Martone was awarded a penalty shot with 3 minutes and 11 seconds remaining in the first overtime period after being hooked on a breakaway by Warren Fogle, former Carolina Hurricanes player, but was denied on the penalty shot. So, but at least he got a second chance to win the game for Carolina, and now they're up 2-0. Sebastian Aho, along with Stankoven, scored for the Hurricanes, while Freddie Anderson made 37 saves on 39 shots faced the net. Like I said, the Hurricanes dominated this game in terms of puck possession, forecheck, shots on goal, and even shots attempts. If you take a look at these shots on goal and shots attempt from both teams, the Hurricanes led on shots on goal with 46-39, and they also led this game in shot attempts with 109-99. They had more scoring chances with 51-46. Ottawa had more high danger scoring chances with 20-18. But yeah, this was a heck of a game. I really enjoyed it. The Hurricanes, I think they had a shutout win in Game 1. Game 2 was far by the better game, I would say, so far throughout this whole entire series. One of the best playoff games I have ever watched. This took 5 full 20-minute periods to decide the winner, which, for those who are new to hockey, in a regular season, if a game was going to go into overtime, it will be 5 minutes. 5 minutes overtime in the regular season, and if nobody scores in overtime, then it will be a shootout. In the playoffs, if nobody scores the game-winning goal in the third period or so, then it will go to overtime. And instead of playing for 5 minutes and there being a shootout afterwards, it will be 20 minutes of hockey in overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If nobody scores there, it will be another overtime with 20 minutes. And if nobody scores there, then it will be another overtime and so forth. I think one playoff game that I can remember that I watched that took this long to decide who's going to score the game-winning goal and win the game was Tampa and Columbus back in 2020. I think this one went to 3-4 overtimes this one, but let me look that up. Because I know that one was a long game. I think it was game one of that series where it took like 3-4 overtimes to decide who was going to win that game. Let me see. How many? Okay, I guess it took one overtime. I thought it was like 2 or 3 overtimes that it had to take for. I know the Lightning won game one of that series, and they won the series in 5 games overall. But yeah, that was another long playoff game. And then another one I can remember was in 2000 between the Flyers and the Penguins, and that one had took 5 overtimes, I believe, 5 overtimes in that one to decide the game winner. It's actually the longest game in the modern era of the NHL. Keith Primeau scored the winning goal at 12 minutes and 1 second into the 5th overtime, concluding a 152-minute, 1-second marathon that ended around 1:35 in the morning Central Time. And the Flyers won that game 2-1 in that 5th overtime, by the way. So some of these games could go to longer overtimes. But yeah, I just wanted to make note of that for the people that are new to hockey. For regular season overtime, it's 5 minutes, then a shootout afterwards. In the playoffs, it's full 20 minutes of overtime. Nobody scores in that one. It's another 20 minutes of overtime, and then so forth until we have a winner. For the Ottawa Senators, Drake Batherson and Dylan Cousins scored for the Senators. Jake Sanderson notched 2 assists in this game, and Jake Sanderson actually played a game high of 43 minutes and 6 seconds of time on ice. That is really impressive. Linus Ullmark made 43 saves on 46 shots, faced the net. Senators will look to bounce back at home against the Carolina Hurricanes for Game 3 of this best-of-7 playoff series, which will take place at Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa, Ontario, on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This game will air on TBS and HBO Max for you guys to watch. But let's move on to the Western Conference first round series of these games. We'll start things off with Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild, as the Dallas Stars hold off their Central Division rivals in the Minnesota Wild with a 4-2 win at home on Monday. This was a much needed win for the Dallas Stars as they lost game 1 on Saturday, which that was a terrible performance for them. Terrible performance from Dallas, but hey, a bounce back win in game 2 to avoid going down this series 2-0. 4-2 win for them, and this series is tied up at 1 apiece. Game 3 will be in St. Paul, Minnesota, the state of hockey, on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. This will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max for you guys to watch. Wyatt Johnson, he scored twice in this one for the Dallas Stars. He's the second Stars/North Stars player, because don't forget, before the Dallas Stars were called the Dallas Stars, they were called the Minnesota North Stars back then, when we saw Mike Modano on the team and a few other players. I think Mike Modano's the only player I know that's on the Minnesota North Stars when the North Stars were a team back then. I don't know anybody else. And he did make an appearance on the first Mighty Ducks movie, by the way. But anyway, Wyatt Johnson is the second Stars/North Stars player, aged 22 or younger, to record 20 career playoff goals, joining Steve Payne, who scored 24 career playoff goals at age 22 or younger. He scored the first goal of the game and the final goal of the game with an empty netter to seal the win in the third period. Matt Duchene, he had a goal and assist for a 2-point night for Dallas. Jason Robinson scored for the Stars. He had a 100-plus point season once, I believe. So he's a heck of a player to watch for them. Jake Onger, he made 28 saves on 30 shots facing net. And I actually did look at the stats for this game between Dallas and Minnesota. And I saw that Miro Heiskanen, I think he played game one as well, but I'm just now seeing that I believe he played game one in that one. And he definitely played in game two. Without Miro Heiskanen, I feel like the Wild will have a better chance to win this series because they don't have the better offense like Dallas does, but I think it's all going to come down to defense in this series. And as you take a look at the line combinations on the Daily Faceoff website, if I can get to it, my computer's acting up, but you take a look at the defensive pairings on the website. You got Esa Lindell, Miro Heiskanen first pair. Second pair, Tomas Harley, Nils Lundqvist. Second pair, Liam Bishaw, and Ty Myers on the third pair. Miro Heiskanen is the backbone for that defense. He is the top tier defensive pair. Like all these other players on defense, probably don't matter. Like Lindell and Heiskanen, that's like the top two defensive pair. That's their anchor for their defense almost. If you take a look at the Wild's defense, they got Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber, top two pairing. That's an elite pairing, by the way. Second pair, Jonas Brodin, Jared Spurgeon, not a bad defensive pairing. And then third pair, Jacob Middleton, Jack Bedosian. They actually have a solid, much better defense than the Dallas Stars do. So it's all going to come down to defense in this series and probably the goaltending too, because Jake Onger has had some playoff performances like we saw in game one where he's kind of choked them and has not been playing good in the playoffs. So I think it's going to come down to goaltending. I think the Wild have the better goaltending tandem than Dallas. I think Dallas, they have Jake Onger, who is the number one goalie, and then Casey DeSmith backing him up. The Wild, they have Jesper Wallstedt, Phil Augustin. That's not a bad goaltending tandem. So the Wild do have the better goaltending tandem. And without Miro Heiskanen, for the Dallas Stars, the Wild do have the better defense in the series. So it's all going to come down to defense. It's all going to come down to goaltending. I think for offense, I think the Stars got it right there for the better offense. Though the Wild's offense is solid as well. It's a really good offense, but I think Dallas pretty much has the better offense. I'm just concerned about if Miro Heiskanen weren't playing in this series, then the defense would not be as good, and the goaltending wouldn't be as good if Jake Onger has another bad performance. So, but he didn't have a bad performance in this one against the Minnesota Wild. So he'll be going to his hometown because he's from Minnesota for games 3 and 4 of that series, looking to put on another huge performance for Dallas to take the series lead and possibly win the series. For the Minnesota Wild, Brock Faber, he scored his first 2 career playoff goals for the Wild. He had both goals for them in this game. He's the 4th youngest defenseman, 24 and under, to score their first career playoff goal. Matthew Dumba, he did it at 20 years old. Jonas Brodin, who's currently playing for the Wild, did it at 22 years old. And Marco Scandella, he did it at 23 years old. So Brock Faber's in some good company right there. Bobby Brink, another Minnesotan, because Brock Faber's also from Minnesota, so is Bobby Brink. He finished with a -1 rating and had 1 shot on goal in 12 minutes and 27 seconds of time on the ice in his playoff debut. Wild for Yakov Trenin did end up leaving this game back in the first period with 5 minutes and 12 seconds remaining after taking an open ice hit from Stars forward Colin Blackwell. So we don't know the update for him heading into game 3. Matt Zuccarello, he also did not play this game. He got injured in game 1 for Minnesota, so he is still possible game time decision heading to game 3. I haven't heard an update for him yet on his injury. Jesper Wallstedt, he made 28 saves on 31 shots faced the net. Game 3 will be at Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota on Wednesday. I was about to say Monday. But on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, it will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max for you guys to watch. Now let's get into the final game of the Monday slate. Ducks, Oilers, game 1 for them. Everybody else that started their playoff series. So the Ducks and Oilers series is just starting to get underway, which I find that very unusual. Usually all these series will start around the same time. And their series is just now starting. Like, that is crazy. But anyways, Kasperi Kapanen scored the game-winning goal in the Oilers' 4-3 win over the Anaheim Ducks in Game 1 on Monday. He broke the tie with 1 minute and 54 seconds remaining in the third period. Took a pass in the slot from Vasily Pokanen, who was behind the net. Beast Lucas style, glove side with a one-timer. And that's all she wrote as the Oilers take Game 1 of this best-of-7 series against the Anaheim Ducks. Kasperi Kapanen scoring his second goal of the game for the game winner. Game 2 will be in Edmonton on Wednesday at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on TBS and HBO Max. Oilers looking to make a run to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd straight year, which to me, to be honest, I don't even see it happening. But they like to prove some of the doubters like me wrong and see that they still have one more run left in them. They aren't going to be playing the Florida Panthers, though, because Florida Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention. But next year, though, with a healthy Matthew Tkachuk and a healthy Alexander Barkov, and the Panthers being the team that they already are, they will, this is a bold prediction, by the way, they will return to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we got to see Matthew Tkachuk supporting his brother Brady Tkachuk in the Senators game against the Hurricanes. I know it was a loss, but hey, at least you got to show that brotherly support. And Matthew Tkachuk being the Stanley Cup winner himself, winning the Stanley Cup 2 times, hoping to pass on a little bit of advice for his brother Brady. We also got to see Matthew Tkachuk rock the Ole Miss Rebels sweater, which you guys know my coverage I do of the Ole Miss Rebels in my freelance digital content creation work I do with the Ole Miss Rebels. So I was very happy to see him rocking some Ole Miss Rebels gear. We could get him some hockey Rebels gear because, like I said, Rebels, I do freelance digital content creation work and coverage of the Ole Miss Rebels hockey team. So, like I said, I was very happy to see Matthew Tkachuk wearing some of the Rebels apparel in the Senators game against the Hurricanes for Game 2. But anyway, let's get back to this series between Anaheim and Edmonton. Like I said, Oilers will not be playing the Panthers in the Cup Final this year because the Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention. So I'm pretty sure a lot of Oilers fans are happy about that, and probably some general hockey fans overall as well, because they don't want to see the Panthers or another Florida team in general, I would say, win the Stanley Cup or make the Stanley Cup Final. Jason Dixon, he also had a 2-goal game in this one for the Oilers. This was his first game back. He returned from a lower body injury that kept him out for the final 3 games of the regular season for the Oilers. He is the 4th player to record a multi-goal game in this Oilers postseason debut. The other ones were Brian Glenn, who did it in Game 1 of the 1992 division semifinals, Yaroslav Pozar, who did it in Game 4 of the 1983 conference finals, and the great Yari Curry, who did it in Game 1 of the 1981 preliminary round. Leon Draisaitl, this was also his first game back. He had 2 assists in this game. He missed the final 14 games in the regular season with a lower body injury, so he was also one that could be a game-time decision for Game 1, but they needed him back in the lineup, and he returned. He didn't score in this one, but he did return in a big way, contributing with those 2 assists. So Oilers fans happy to see Leon Draisaitl back in the lineup, playing with Connor McDavid, playing with the Oilers. So, yeah. Speaking of Connor McDavid, he's actually held off the score sheet in this one, which we usually don't see that from Connor McDavid, though. So, maybe in Game 2 he'll bounce back, get on the score sheet, and the Oilers will grab another win at home before heading out on the West Coast, Southern California, SoCal, to take on the Ducks in Game 3. So, and fun fact, the Oilers are, or I should say were, they were 0-12-2 in the regular season when Connor McDavid was held without a point, didn't record a point in those games. And the other Connor Ingram, He made 25 saves on 28 shots faced the net. Connor Ingram is the third goaltender to earn a win in his first postseason appearance with the Oilers, joining Jack Campbell, who did it in Game 4 of the 2023 first-round series against the LA Kings, and Andy Moog, I don't know how you pronounce that last name, but he did it in Game 1 of the 1981 preliminary round. For the Anaheim Ducks, Troy Terry scored twice. For Anaheim, he also had an assist for a 3-point night. Leo Carlson had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. And Lucas Dahlstall made 30 saves on 34 shots faced the net. I don't know if I said this in my predictions video on YouTube. And I also put it out on my podcast. By the way, for anybody wanting to check that out. But I would prefer you can go to the one on YouTube because you actually see my playoff bracket. Whereas on my podcast, you hear it, but you don't see it. But anyways, I don't know if I said this in this video or not, but the Ducks have not won a playoff series since 2017. And ironically, that was against the Edmonton Oilers in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're playing the first round right now. I'm saying when the Ducks, or was that the second round? I don't know. I think that was the second round. Who did they play in the first round that year? I don't know if it was Edmonton or not. I know they played Edmonton. I think it was in the second round. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, the Ducks played the Flames in the first round of 2017, and they swept them. And then they beat the Oilers in 7 games of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in that year. So, ironically, that was the last time that the Ducks have won a playoff series in 2017. Their last playoff appearance until now was 2018, which they got swept by the Sharks in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs that year. So, looking to win this playoff series against the Oilers yet again. But it couldn't be worse than the Minnesota Wild because Minnesota Wild, their last playoff series win was in 2015. And that was against the St. Louis Blues in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs because I know they got swept by my Chicago Blackhawks in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs that year, in which the Blackhawks went on to win the Stanley Cup that year. Their 6th Stanley Cup in franchise history. Fingers crossed they return to the playoffs next season or maybe in 2028. Love to see some improvement and love to see them back in playoff contention. But yeah, Game 2 is on Wednesday at Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That game will air on TBS and HBO Max for you guys to watch. The Ducks looking to even up the series at 1 game apiece before heading off to SoCal, Southern California, Orange County, Anaheim, California for Game 3 on, I believe that will be on Friday. But Game 2 will be on Wednesday, 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We'll see what happens in Game 2 of that one. But taking a look at the Stanley Cup playoff games on the slate for today, there's only 4 Stanley Cup playoff games on the slate for today for Day 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Starting with Game 2 of the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Game 2 is in Tampa, by the way. The Canadiens won the first one, Game 1. In overtime with a 4-3 overtime win on the Lightning in Game 1. Juraj Slafkovsky with a hat trick in that one and the game winner as well. And the Canadiens lead this best-of-7 series 1-0, looking to take a 2-0 series lead before heading off to Montreal for Games 3 and 4. Then we got that game will air on ESPN2, by the way. Canadiens and Lightning, that game will air on ESPN2. Now let's go to the Sabres and Bruins Game 2, which will start at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Game 2 is in Buffalo. Sabres lead this best-of-7 series 1-0. That game will be on ESPN, by the way. They won 4-3 on Sunday. And man, oh man, was that barn loud for Game 1. These fans have waited a long time to see playoff hockey back in Buffalo. And they finally got first playoff for the Sabres since 2011. I was in elementary school at the time when the Sabres last made the playoffs. Now I'm in college in 2026, and the Sabres are a playoff team. It's been 14 long years, and the Sabres are finally back in the Stanley Cup playoffs. These fans absolutely deserve it. They got their money's worth for their Game 1 performance. That was one of the best performances in the Stanley Cup playoffs that I've ever seen. For the Buffalo Sabres and for, like I said, the playoffs in general, one of the best playoff games I've ever seen. The Sabres were down 2-0 in that game, but Mr. TNT, USA gold medalist, standing at 6'6", Tage Thompson, with the two most crucial goals for the Sabres. And then Beck Malestein had the game-winning goal. Alex Tuck put the game away with an empty netter. Man, those fans. I would love to see, if it was possible, all of these 7 games should be in Buffalo. Like, I know Boston's also a hockey city, but these fans have waited 14 years to see Sabres playoff hockey. And why not have all of these games in Buffalo? I sure hope we get a 7-game series between the Bruins and the Sabres for that one. But Sabres looking to take a 2-0 series lead in that one. A lot of people predicted the Sabres would win the series against the Bruins, considering all the young talent they have and them being one of the red-hot teams to watch since December. I was one of those few people that picked Boston to win the series. I'm sorry to spoil the party if you're a Sabres fan, but would still love to see the Sabres win the series nonetheless. Because like I said, it's been 14 long years since they last made the playoffs and since they last won a playoff series. So, yeah, but we'll see how everything will go in Game 2 and throughout the rest of the series. I loved watching Game 1. I will keep my eyes glued on for the rest of the series because, man, oh man, will that be a fun series to watch between Buffalo and Boston. Like, come on now. Doesn't get anything better than that. I hope Game 2 be as much better as Game 1 was. Like, for Game 1, that was one of the best playoff games I've ever watched. Sabres coming back from 2 goals down, winning it 4-3 because the Bruins did get a last-second goal before the third period ended. Like, after Alex Tuck put the game away to make it 4-2, the Bruins actually did end up scoring last second, which made it 4-3, and then the Sabres held on for the win. We'll see what Game 2 brings in Buffalo. We'll probably have the same atmosphere as we did in Game 1, maybe even better atmosphere, maybe even a better game in Game 2. We'll see. We'll just have to see. I will be watching that game for sure because I just like seeing these fans. Like, they have a passionate fan base. Like, this will be one of the teams I would love to work for as a sports journalist, as a photographer, as a digital content creator. Whatever works out best for me, I would love to work with them. They have a passionate fan base, great hockey city to be in, work in, stuff. So, yeah, that will be unreal if I were to decide to work with the Sabres or not. But, yeah. Game 2 is in Buffalo. We'll see what happens in Game 2 of this series. Can't wait for it. That is a 6:30 p.m. puck drop on ESPN. There we go to Game 2 of the Utah Mammoth taking on the VGK Vegas Golden Knights at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Game 2 is in Vegas. By the way, WrestleMania is in the books for Vegas. The Raw after WrestleMania is in the books for Vegas. So they just had their WrestleMania weekend. We saw Roman Reigns win against CM Punk in the main event. Randy Orton, I wish Randy Orton would have won, but we did see Randy Orton punt Cody Rhodes after Cody Rhodes retained his title in the main events. And then Pat McAfee got injured, got through the announce table by Jelly Roll, took a crossroads by Cody Rhodes, and then the RKO he took from Randy Orton after he was kind of too slow to count the 3 fall. And then Randy Orton got upset, RKO'd him. But anyways, the WrestleMania festivities are in the book for Las Vegas. As Vegas fans will turn their attention to Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Playoffs, which will be at T-Mobile Arena. Golden Knights lead this best-of-7 series 1-0. They won Game 1 4-2 on Sunday. They will look to win Game 2 tonight before heading to Salt Lake City for Game 3, which I can't wait to see what that atmosphere will be like. The Utah Mammoth's first playoff game in Utah. So that's going to be a loud atmosphere for sure. I remember them being so loud for their first ever game in NHL history when they took on my Chicago Blackhawks back in 2024. And they won that game, unfortunately, though. And I say unfortunately because they were facing the Blackhawks, which I am a Blackhawks fan, for those of you that do not know. And they were just loud on their feet. And they were very passionate. Like, I would never think to have hockey in Utah. And these fans over these last 2 years have showed that. They have showed that they really care about hockey. They want to see the Utah Mammoth win. They want to see them succeed. And they have a loud fan base as well. That game between the Mammoth and Golden Knights will air on ESPN2. And then we got the final game of the night between the LA Kings and the Colorado Avalanche at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That is game 2 of that series, which will be in Denver. The Avalanche lead that best-of-7 series 1-0. They won game 1 2-1 on Sunday. They will look to win game 2 tonight. We'll just have to see how that will go. That's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button on the YouTube channel and make sure to follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We're going to be with you guys all postseason long throughout the Stanley Cup Playoffs. So make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to this podcast to. And hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys on, I want to say Wednesday, but I don't know if I can make Wednesday. But I'll see you guys on Thursday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.